Each year, more than 100,000 children are reported to be victims of sex trafficking here in the U.S. Data shows 4 out of 5 of these victims have spent time during their life within the foster care system. Texas court-appointed special advocate, better known as Texas Casa, is a statewide association advocating for kids in the child welfare system and, of course, their well-being. Joining me now is Rhonda Kirkendall, an anti-child trafficking consultant for Texas Casa, to explain their efforts to recruit and train volunteers to advocate for youth in foster care. Rhonda, good morning. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I know this effort, this job is near and dear to your heart, being a survivor of human trafficking. We so much appreciate your time this morning. We're going to get into your story in the coming days. We chatted about that last year, but this morning I want to really focus in on Texas Casa, what it is, how it works, how it protects children within the state.
Sure. So as you've said, we are court-appointed special advocates. When a child is removed from their home and put in the child welfare system, a court can order that a guardian ad litem be appointed to that case. That is that CASA. That CASA, their job is to advocate for what is in the best interest of that child. And so I was hired about 2 years ago to Texas CASA so that we would implement anti-trafficking measures across the state in all of our 74 programs. So what we do know is that Texas ranks second in the most reported cases of child sex trafficking. And so when you look at the child welfare system as a whole, in 2022, there were about a little over 38,000 children in the child welfare system. And a University of Texas study found that of that number, about 25% are at risk of trafficking. That comes down to about 9,600 kids that are at risk. And it is not that DFPS or the child welfare system causes trafficking, but the same exact vulnerabilities that child was removed from their home, whether it's neglect, sexual abuse, physical abuse, that also increases the vulnerabilities that traffickers look for as well. And so at Texas Casa, we also understand that there is a disproportionality with people of color in the child welfare system and with sex trafficking. That is also an issue that we are working on. And we're doing it twofold through a program called Texas Casa Act. ACT stands for anti-child trafficking. We want our CASA volunteers to do more than see something. We want them to be able to act.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Texas Casa also advocates for legislation here in the state of Texas. Are there any current bills you're working on to help transform the child welfare system as we know it that could better help these children?
So Texas Casa does have their own public policy team. The work that I do with legislation mainly is through the Fort Bend County District Attorney's Human Trafficking Team and other advocate agencies like Children at Risk, Street Grace. And so we are working on several things coming for the upcoming legislative session. One of them is improper relationship between an educator and a student. We have seen overwhelmingly cases where trafficking is occurring between a teacher or an educator and students. And although that is becoming more prevalent and we're finding more about it, the legislation that we currently have, the current statutes are not good. For example, currently right now, the statute of limitations for that crime is 3 years. That means that if a child is victimized when they're a freshman in high school, by the time they're a senior in high school, they can do nothing about it. They are past the statute of limitations. There also is an oversight in the penal code in that if you are convicted of improper relationship between an educator and a student, you don't have to register on the sex offender registry. So those are things that we want to change. The other thing we are working on is what is being worked on by Lone Star Justice Alliance. It is an affirmative defense for duress. And what we want to do is we want to expand that definition of duress. Currently, victims of this kind of crime, they're forced to commit crimes by their trafficker, whether that's theft, they're convicted of prostitution. Right now, the current statute says that duress is only if there is an imminent force or threat of force. What we want to do is expand that to consider victims of sex trafficking. You know, so that someone who has been sex trafficked and has been coerced or frauded, Right now, the way the law is written, it prevents courts from considering the complete picture, from allowing victims to explain their victimization and why this crime occurred. And that's one other thing that we are working on to change as well.
Yeah, still a lot of work to be done. For people watching right now, listening, who want to get involved, how can they go about doing so?
So we have a Facebook group, and this Facebook group has been created out of the Fort Bend County District Attorney's Human Trafficking Team, but we do work in the greater Houston area. And the Facebook group is called Our Voice in Texas. There's actually a panel that's going to be done tomorrow that will be live I will be on the panel, and also Fort Bend County District Attorney Brian Middleton, that will have wonderful knowledge about how to get engaged. Stay involved with Our Voice in Texas, because we also work through the legislature, letting people know how they can become involved without having to get in your car and drive to Austin. There are things that you can do here in the district from your home that can make a difference in moving this legislation.
And as we know, human trafficking impacts all communities throughout the state in every corner. There's so much work to be done, so many ways to get involved. We're obviously having this conversation now in the month of January because it is Human Trafficking Awareness Month, but this work continues all year long. So we so much appreciate your time coming on this morning, and I'm very excited to share with our viewers an update on your story that we first told folks about last year. So Rhonda, as always, thank you so much for chatting with us this morning.
Thank you.